Number two, need a motion, approval of October 26 meeting minutes. Need a motion? Second. Motion second. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number three, this is a public comment period. Anyone wish to address this board at this point? Hearing no one, moving to item number four, the public meeting report. Ashley, glad to have you back.
On November 9th, Larry and I attended the Bullitt County Chamber of Commerce meeting that we had the Chief of Staff for the Transportation Secretary, Asa Swan, talked about the shift and some of the transportation projects going on in the state. So that's what we have for November.
All right, any questions, Ashley? Thank you so much, Ashley. Item number five is the MPO year in review. Larry Cheney. Larry, you're up.
Yes, sir. Can everyone see this, or do we need to take the lights down? Are we okay? Sort of, kind of. We try to do this on an annual basis, but we generally run out of time. We didn't quite get to it last year, so I stretched it back a little bit back into October of last year. But one of the things that we don't generally have the opportunity to do because of that is to think about and talk about the things that we've accomplished in the course of a year. The MPO is a lot more far-reaching than most of us think. There are a lot of things that we do that are huge. The things that we are involved with, things like bridges and transit, bike and ped things, all the things that we as a body have impact on. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. So we'll talk a little bit about it. One of the things that, again, is a huge project. Even though this project is impactful to many, many people, it's no more impactful to those people than a smaller project would be to a smaller community. Back in October, this is the way it was going to look. Basically looks the same way. This is an artist rendering that was part of the environmental impact statement. After the October meeting in 16, a lot of us took a tour. NDOT allowed us on the structure before it was open. You can't see, but some of you are in this photo. December 18th, the bridge was dedicated and it was open to traffic. There was the opportunity for 100 people to be in a caravan that would be the first people across the bridge. The spots were taken up in about 6 minutes online for people wanted that reservation. There weren't nearly as many people at this dedication as there were for the downtown bridge, mainly because it was really cold. I mean, really cold. As you can see, we've got representatives, Governor Holcomb, Andy Barber, representative from Federal Highway Administration. All these people were there at the dedication. This is a project that took a lot of coordination, 50 years. Everyone in this room was involved in this project in some way, whether you know it or not. The MPO was heavily involved. If you remember a couple of years ago, when this was actually going full bore, we had the opportunity at one point to say, no, we're not going to spend our money on the bridge. But you elected to go the other way. Thank you very much. We have this to show for it. In addition to the bridge itself, a lot of other things were considered along with the bridge project. Historic preservation, accommodations for bike and ped. You can't see it on this photo, but there's this trail runs, there's a barrier wall. If you haven't been out there, there's a barrier wall. The interstate's right here. This is a multi-use path. It crosses the bridge on this side, on the downstream side. If you haven't been out there, haven't used it, there's a trailhead on both sides of the river. I have to say there's a little nicer trailhead in Indiana than what we have in Kentucky, but there is one nonetheless. So please go out and in warmer weather and cross the bridge. This is the opening day caravan. One of the things that that we really embrace, I think, as an NPO, and certainly as staff, is the use of technology. This is a drone that that NDOT used at the dedication. And from this, you can see, well, balloons aren't typically there every single day, but they were pretty cool that day. You can see the size of the gathering. Like I said, it was very, very cold that day. But what we have here is an example of what we can do as transportation professionals. The fact that the bridge was completed, all the things that it had to go through to get to that completion, and then you throw in the drone on top of that. What more could you want? One of the things that has happened since the bridge has been open, the communities in southern Indiana, Jeffersonville, Clark County, River Ridge, which is 62 right here. The River Ridge is up in that area. Those groups have proposed that we request a scenic byway designation for this section of roadway. That has been sent to NDOT. A more formal application will be coming up shortly. But what we have in the community is River Road is a scenic byway, it's a Kentucky scenic byway. Highway 62 in Indiana is the Ohio River scenic byway. It has national designation. So what they are requesting is that the section between those two scenic byways be designated as one as well. We've gotten some positive response in that regard. There are areas there that are really serve as an entryway into southern Indiana. Coming into Kentucky, you have Harris Creek, you have a lot of historic properties over there. They kind of want the same thing for Indiana, and there is some unspoiled area over there if you've been through. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of the fence you're on, literally, 3 billboards have gone up in that area, and that's what has sparked this movement to go to scenic highway designation. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of months as we move this process forward. One of the things that we talk about a lot is innovation. We have in our community not as many roundabouts as, say, Carmel, but we do have some. One which gets a lot of abuse is State Road 265 and 62, built with the new bridges project. We have a lot of truck drivers are saying that it's hard to maneuver. It's not what you typically think of as a classic roundabout. It serves a purpose. NDOT's going to reevaluate that. Where's Jim? NDOT's going to reevaluate the operation of this periodically and see if there are other things we can do. It's a new technology. It's a new geometry for our area, and it's going to take some getting used to. While we're getting used to that one, we have another one in Fairdale. This one is a joint project, Louisville Metro and KYTC, that took 2 city streets and 2 state roads. We can see the old offset in the intersection here to here. It's very problematic, particularly in the rush hours. So what has happened here is the project is brought it all together in a roundabout situation. We also have a segment of the Louisville Loop that's going to go through this area as well, so that makes that connection over to the forest. Chapel Road and Smyrna Parkway, this one has been in place for a little while, but it is a city project, and it does carry a lot of traffic. Cripple Chapel goes on out to Preston Highway, and Smyrna Parkway obviously goes on over to the Snyder Freeway and over to the Outer Loop. We've done a lot of things with transit. Again, innovation is one of the things that we are focused on, I think. No one is here from TARC today. Aida couldn't be with us, so I'm going to speak for her. Well, Nancy's here.
I'm here, baby. So I have to speak.
So one of the things that TARC has decided to do is to build their electric fleet, zero-emission buses. Zero-emission buses are used 2 different ways at TARC right now. They're using the larger buses on longer routes. The blue one up the top, the Zero bus, is replaced the trolley. And it's actually the footprint of that trolley system is expanding because of these buses. The electric fleet that TARC has now is the largest fleet of electric buses east of the Mississippi River. So we have that to be proud of. Bus stop improvement program. Now this is a before and after picture of a bus stop on Preston Highway. TARC has embarked on a program to methodically, as funding allows, to move through the entire system and upgrade their bus stops, which makes it a whole lot easier for pedestrians and for the buses. A project that just got started, and this body was approached by a group a couple of years ago to start looking at transit service into the Riverport area. We worked with TARC last year to try to get funding for it. This year they got funding for it. It's currently underway. It started last week. And I'm hoping to have Aida come to our meeting in December to tell us how that's going. But what that has done is it's increased the availability not only in reach but also in time to provide access to jobs in the Riverport area. Speaking of innovation, bus rapid transit. This is something that we're looking forward to seeing how it plays out. This is part of the Dixie Highway project, Dixie Highway do-over, makeover, rehabilitation project. Bus rapid transit, not only stations but equipment are being purchased as part of this project. So that's pretty exciting. It's something that we don't have anywhere near our city. It's something that other cities are looking at to see how it's going to work out. Bicycles and pedestrians. One of the things that KIPTA staff did, actually we started it summer before last, summer of 16. We completed a bicycle and pedestrian facilities inventory for our entire region. Since that time, we've updated it several occasions where new sidewalks were built, new bikeways were striped and or built. We have this at your disposal, so if anyone needs this information, it is available to you. One of the reasons why we decided to do this, well, two reasons. One being performance measures. And if you remember, back during our goals and objectives production, the improvement of the bike and pedestrian network were both performance measures for us, the performance targets. In order to achieve that, we needed to know a baseline. We needed to know where we were, where the gaps were, where we needed to go. So that's what we've done with this. One of the things that's occurring over in Indiana right now, that both of these were under construction in 17, are the missing pieces of the Ohio River Greenway. One in New Albany and one in Clarksville. Once these are completed, you'll have about 8 miles between downtown Jeffersonville and downtown New Albany, basically from 65 to 64 across the Indiana riverfront. These are projects that were conceived 15, 20 years ago. We always talk about the importance of planning and the importance of keeping an eye on that target. Well, that's what's happened here. We've been looking at this entire corridor for many, many years, and it's finally coming to fruition. These are some of the things that you access along this Ohio River Greenway. You see the Ohio River, the Falls of the Ohio Interpretive Center. If you've never been there, you need to go. That's a world-class facility. It's really cool. We have George Rogers Clark's home, where Lewis and Clark Expedition started. We've got the band shell in New Albany, the falls, the fossil beds are down there on the left. But all these things will be accessed directly from that greenway. Take a bike ride and see every one of these in a day. Same thing here, you've got the Big Four Bridge. So what's happening now over in Jeffersonville, just off of this photo here, you're able to get on the Big Four Bridge, come across the river. So not only are you accessing the entire riverfront in Indiana, you can also enjoy the one in Kentucky. We always brag about this on our own because this is our program, it's your program. It's an MPO initiative for van pooling. We look at transit, we look at bike and ped, things that we're doing to provide alternative modes of transportation for our community. And one of those is Ticket to Ride. We didn't really mean to, we had to. Went to these new style vans. Ford changed their style. So these are our new vans. We're replacing those on a regular basis. This kind of shows where we've been since 2002, the inception of the program. In the last couple of years, we've stabilized at about 78 to 80 vans. One of the reasons for that is gas price. Right now, gas prices are fairly reasonable. People say, nah, I'm going to go door to door, I'm not going to ride in the van. But we have maintained that number, which is a testament to our staff and our marketing efforts in trying to keep those numbers up. Here are some of the benefits of van pooling. The one that really strikes home, I think, to most people is the vehicle miles traveled, VMT. 24 million miles are saved on an annual basis by our van pool program. So it's 24 million miles that are not driven by a single occupancy vehicle. Another thing that we've tried to do in this past year is change the way we do outreach, change the way we access the public, change the way that we try to get input. And as you know, we record the meetings now and we post them on our website. We have a lot of people that actually attend meetings this way. Some of us do, after the fact. We had a plan review. We had a participation plan review this year. We brought that to you to let you know that we looked at the plan again and that we were going to make a lot of changes to it, but we'll revisit that again on a regular basis. Something we also embarked on is the online access to both our Metropolitan Transportation Plan and our Transportation Improvement Program. You can go to our website and you can find all of these individual projects on these interactive maps. You get project details, the cost of the project, where it's located, who the project sponsor is, by going to our website. You hear at these meetings a lot about the update to the MTP, Metropolitan Transportation Plan, what we're calling Connecting Kentuckiana. As part of that, we're trying to change the way we do transportation planning. We're trying to get out ahead of the needs rather than address the needs in a reactive way. And we brought a lot of those things to you. Several years ago, we started out the campaign with 26 public meetings in 6 weeks. We had billboards, we had radio spots, trying to get public input. We felt like we did a pretty good job at that point, but we've increased that since then. We're changing the way we do that. We're with Ashley, when Ashley came on board, we're going out in the community a lot more. We're trying to get in touch with the community's needs. In addition to that, what we're having to do now, and Mr. Nelson will address this, I'm sure, a little bit later, performance-based planning. This is something we started on this journey in 2012, 2013, because we as a staff thought that it was the right thing to do. Subsequent to that, there have been 2 transportation bills that reinforced that. So all of our efforts weren't lost, thank goodness. But what we're faced with right now is this performance-based planning. And what's involved there is we set goals, objectives, and targets, and we're expected to meet those. We're not only expected to meet those, we're also expected to assist the states both Indiana and Kentucky in meeting theirs. And to do that, what we've done is we've put together a project application and a way to bring projects into the MTP and then into the TIP that will address that will allow us to further our goals and to meet those performance measures. So one of the things we've done is we've put together in 17 what we call our online resource center. Now this is available on our website, and it has more information than you could possibly ever want or ever care about. But what it does, it allows you to go onto this website, and when you're filling out your application, when you're developing your projects, you'll be able to see what these impacts could be. You'll be able to see things like a crash analysis. And what we've done here, we've brought this to your committee on several occasions. We've done crash analysis to get the high crash locations. So if you're looking for a project, or if you've got a project on a particular route, you can go in here, you can see what those crashes look like. We also have level of service, same thing. If you're looking at a particular corridor, you can see what that level of service is. Something else we've added that we've not really talked to you a lot about is red flag resources. This is a little more critical in Indiana right now in the planning phase than it is in Kentucky, but I think it's going to be something in the future that's going to be more important. What this does, it shows you things like where there are Superfund sites, where there are floodplains, where there's glade crests, or at least where we think there might be, because you never really know where glade crest is, do you? But these are things that you can look at to, one, decide whether you want to build the project in that particular area, and two, how much it might cost if you do. So you'll be able to see what some of these roadblocks might be, what you can do to mitigate, avoid, minimize, and how much it might cost to do so. So this is also available on our resource center. We've also developed a project management process that currently is only involving our dedicated funds. And all of you have been impacted by that or been involved with it to date by either improving what we've done with our project management process, improving the process itself, and you may soon be involved with the results of the process, since we may not have enough money to go around for the next project, call for projects. So where do we go from here? We're not sure. We're going to stay the course in what we're doing right now. We've got a lot of things that are coming up. The MTP and the TIP will both be updated in 17. Probably every one of you will be involved in some way, either as a project sponsor or as a committee member. That's something that we're going to keep bringing to you, pieces of it. We're going to bring the schedule to you in the not too distant future, so we'll know where that's going to be. But we expect that to be roughly a year from now. Hopefully, bring it back to you in August next year and have that new MTP and TIP approved. That's all I have.
Okay, any
Thank you
questions?
very much.
Questions? One thing, Larry, it's not too long ago, I guess, before we actually recorded the meetings. Now, of course, we do record the meetings. Do we track the feedback as far as people making comments because of that? Or,
We can, Ashley, do you want to address that?
Do we track the feedback?
right,
We can see how many-
after a public meeting, somebody calls in, I heard about this, I'm concerned. Do we track that? How effective, I guess, is the recording the meeting then?
Whenever we're out in the community, we have records for every place that we go, and right now we're geocoding everything. So for the last 3 years since I've been here, if it's a specific comment, like if it's just we love red turf, then it's not going to be on the map, even though we like
Okay.
turf a lot. But if it says that there's an intersection that needs a stoplight or a neighborhood that wants sidewalks, we have all of that, and they're all mapped on. That's something that Adam's working on right now. The GIS team is a history of all the maps for the last few years, where the comments have come from and what people are asking for. So
And we-
have all of those comments.
Okay.
And we track how many people view.
View the meeting, and that was the thing, the location and viewing, and it was a big concern. So I haven't heard much about it, so I assume recording it was a big plus.
Actually,
Right, the meetings, when we have our meetings.
Yeah, we got comments from our meetings.
No, none that we have gotten.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, any other questions? Thanks, Larry. Item number, looks like we skipped 6. Item number 7, Federal Highway Administration.
No, he's right there.
Mine's blank. Okay, Federal Highway Administration, Thomas Nelson.
Oh, I was hoping you'd skip me.
Oh, well, what's written on it?
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to give you an update. One of the things, and you can see how things changed from where we were a year ago. Last year, about this time at the annual luncheon, Brandy Henderson, who was at that time the commissioner for NDOT, is now our acting administrator for Federal Highway. So Brandy's been on the job for a few months now, was appointed deputy administrator for Federal Highway, but as we wait for our administrator to be named, she is the acting administrator. And what I want to do is just give you an update on a few things from where we are in terms of Federal Highway, US DOT, and I'll just touch on several points that I really want to walk through, and then I'll end talking a little bit about President Trump's, this administration's infrastructure plan and where we are. And I think some of you have probably been reading that kind of day to day as either the media or the administration updates us on the progress. So just quickly, most of our focus for the mid part of the year has been obviously on some of the hurricanes. We at Federal Highway do have a significant role in terms of emergency relief. And I know FEMA does, but we do in terms of the infrastructure impact. So as the hurricanes hit in 4 major areas, which was Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, that did take a lot of our resources, not only in those areas that were affected in the South, but also particularly from some of our staff in Kentucky. So either we had some folks who were boots on the ground or helping out in terms of the resources in Atlanta at some of the call centers. So just to kind of give you a point that does actually have some impact on some of the offices around the country as we look at some of the emergency relief. But one of the things we really try to focus on is getting that money out quickly, and that does happen also in Kentucky, whether if we're impacted either by floods, mudslides, storms, etc. We have that same role even here locally in providing the state, once the governor has done an emergency declaration, to be able to help those impacted areas. In terms of where we are and with the nomination of our administrator, that has come out of a subcommittee. I think as most of you have heard, Paul Trombino is the nominee. He was the former director of Iowa DOT. I fortunately had the opportunity to work with him when I was on the private side, and he was with Wisconsin DOT. So Mr. Trombino will definitely be an asset to Federal Highway. One of the things that will not change will be innovation. I know as part of former administrator Victor Mendez, and then also as part of former administrator Greg Nadeau, is Everyday Counts. That focus is still going to stay first and foremost with Federal Highway. I know Larry touched on that a little bit in terms of innovation. One of the things, and I talk about this constantly, is that usually the government's not known for being innovative. Well, US DOT, Federal Highway, has really been the leader government-wide in bringing innovation to the industry, and then really bringing you all into the fold and working with you all as partnerships as we bring some of that innovation out around the country. So that will continue. One of the things, like I said, is Mr. Trombino has been a leader in Iowa on the issue, and then also with his work along with TRB, and then also as ASTO president. In terms of the environmental review, environmental streamlining process, we are moving forward with that. President Trump signed the executive order earlier this year. In terms of the environmental streamlining, you will see that be implemented on projects immediately. So that process has started. Despite all the other things that's been swirling around, as far as that review process, we at US DOT Federal Highway are moving forward in that. Gloria Shepherd and her team in Washington have touched us in the division offices and making sure we're taking a strong look at the projects and make sure we are streamlining those, whether those are projects we're working with KYTC or some of our local partners. So that environmental permit process, that one DOT, and working with some of our other agency partners, that is going to happen, that is going to be implemented. We're going to work under one umbrella to make sure that process is streamlined. And then also the White House is making sure through the environmental offices and making sure we work under one umbrella to make sure that process is streamlined. In terms of public-private partnerships, I know that's been part of President Trump's infrastructure plan and what Secretary Elaine Chao has emphasized. That is looking to move forward in some form or fashion. What I can tell you is that there'll be some flexibility in terms of where we are with some of the rural states. Obviously, P3 is not effective everywhere. So, definitely Secretary Chao and others understand that. But where P3, where we can bring those private partners in, bring those private partners to the table, whether on projects or through some other alternative, innovative funding mechanisms, US DOT, Federal Highway, federal government will be looking for those opportunities. Now, how that plays into the projects, that remains to be seen. I think some of you have seen that in action in terms of the submittals for the recent Tiger Grant applications, where you're bringing some private partners to the table. There's opportunities there. Also where there's opportunities maybe where you can toll projects. So the P3 and actually bringing private partners to the table can take place in many forms. Definitely we are flexible in that light, but from where we stand right now, that process is not going to go away. Now, it may be some flexibility, as I mentioned, but that is looking to move forward as we look at this round of the infra grants, and then as we move forward with the overall program. In terms of connected vehicle technology, as we talked about innovation, and I was listening to Larry's presentation. The US DOT is going to continue to work with the Googles of the world, Ubers, etc. And actually we're doing that in some parts of the country now, and either with some of the smart growth or some of the other things that are going on. But in terms of connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles, and they are different, we are still taking that leadership role. Secretary Chao has mentioned that. I know they're working on just refining some of the guidance and some of the other things. But as far as when we're looking at V2I, which is the vehicle to infrastructure, V2V, which is the vehicle to vehicle technology, and some of the other things that are out there, we are going to continue to partnership. So as you look at some of the localities, specifically in the major metro areas such as Louisville, really start to be forward thinking there, looking at some of the partners in terms of the auto industry. I know Michigan has been a leader there. Colorado's been a leader in terms of some of the things we're doing as far as truck platooning, but I think that's going to be important that we in Kentucky continue to be the leader in that area. I mean, we're in the top 5 in terms of, I think, auto production, et cetera. So, I mean, we're not a state that has to play catch up, but it is important that we remain the leaders there. And US DOT is definitely working to partner in terms of that light. So I think that's going to be important as we move forward. In terms of performance measures and where we are moving forward and working with our state and local partners in terms of performance measures. There's the safety measures, the pavement and bridge condition measure, and I'm just looking at my iPad, the performance and freight, and as well as the asset management. Those are all out there now moving forward. So where we are, that is going, we're looking at a data-driven decision-making process. So that's one of the things that Congress has asked of us and actually the public has demanded of us over the last few years. This is not a federal highway mandate. This is really a citizen mandate that's really percolated itself up in terms of where we are in terms of overall investment in infrastructure and also investment in asset management. So Federal Highway, along with others in the federal government, have taken a lead also in partnering with the state DOTs as well as, again, the local partners in moving that forward. So as we move towards this year and then also looking at where we are in terms of the due dates, we'll be looking to partner with you all to move that forward. In terms like what I'd like to do now is just shift a little bit to the President's infrastructure plan. I think most of you have had an opportunity to view this. This is the fiscal year 18 budget highlights. This was issued in May of this year, and it still is applicable. So if you have an opportunity, definitely go to the US DOT website, take a look at this. Congress hasn't had an opportunity to actually approve this yet, and they're the ones that actually approved the budget. But what is important as part of this is that it does lay out the overall framework on how this administration is looking to make infrastructure decisions. I already touched on that, which is actually public-private partnership, locals, and what this administration is in terms of self-help. So locals bringing more dollars to the table is that self-help component, and then also looking at leveraging some of the infrastructure dollars. So a lot of that is part of the President's overall budget. Where we stand right now is there's $200 billion as part of that budget. It's not part of US DOT's budget, but it's part of the overall President's budget for this year. And that $200 billion is part of what's going to be leveraged, that $1 trillion leveraging over that 10-year period. So I know there's been still some talk now that it's $1 trillion is really that leveraging of that dollar. So I know the tax reform is going to be looks to be the #1 priority with Congress right now as we move towards the end of this year and at the beginning of next year. But where we are now is what we're hearing is right after tax reform is set, and if another bill of health care doesn't come up, the infrastructure plan will be following the tax reform bill. So stay tuned. I know there is some work being done in the background in terms of some committee work, and then also in terms of Federal Highway and US DOT staff working with some of the committees in Congress to offer some technical assistance as Congress starts to move the infrastructure plan forward. But right now, we're in line behind the tax reform. So with that, I will close. If there's any questions, definitely be open to answer those.
Jeff, any questions, Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one thing you mentioned several times was B3 and tolling, and yesterday Senator Higgins mentioned the same thing, but he said tolling will probably only be on new roads. Do you see it only on new roads? Do you see it on refurbished roads or on any road?
Right now, it'll likely be, and I think where things stand right now, will be only on new roads. Where we stand now, if any of the new bridges come in, that is allowed. So, for example, the Ohio River bridges, you can toll any of the bridges. But right now, yeah, just on new roads, or it has to be equal number of free lanes available.
So NDOT has just completed a study, I guess, a feasibility study on tolling their interstates. Is that something that Federal Highways will entertain in the future if they were to come to you and petition tolling those interstates? Would that be something that might be considered in the future?
Well, I think the best answer to that is it's a case-by-case basis, and then it depends on is it a state DOT or under a tolling authority. So I think that's going to have to be a secretary's decision and on a case-by-case basis. And then just on that note, there is the ISRRPP pilot program, which is the Interstate Rehab and Rehabilitation Pilot Program. 3 slots are available for that also, which is basically allowing states to toll under that pilot program. So I know that solicitation is out also.
So you're back to rehab and
But only under that pilot program.
and
So
to Larry's point, they're talking about doing it on existing.
Yes.
You all don't have that in the radar.
yeah, that's right. So that's what they're looking at.
Any other questions?
I have one. Do you have any idea where we are with the continuing resolution? Do you have any idea how
No.
long the next one might be, or?
Not at all. We do know December 8th is when, that's the sunset on where we are with this continuing resolution. Have not heard anything else on where Congress is, I suspect, or where they are with that. I suspect as we get a little closer, as we've had, in the past, they'll probably move something. I suspect, and this is just Thomas speaking without my Federal Highway Act, is that we'll probably be under another CR, under some form or some period of time.
It's not affecting us much yet. One thing it is affecting is the flexing federal highway dollars to FDA, because FDA is not accepting anything based on that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and you're right on. I think that's where we are with that. Hopefully we can get a bill through the end of the fiscal year, but right now, or at least funding through the end of the fiscal year, we have not heard anything on or new on that yet, but I suspect we'll probably be under a new CR.
Larry, if I may, Thomas, this is the same in each state in our nation as well as in Congress in Washington, as we see more efficient vehicles on the highways, as we see more electric vehicles, we see more hybrid vehicles, and all of that is taking away from the revenue sources that come in to maintain and build new highways. And we all know that we have a huge demand for improved transportation systems with no money to do the improvements that are needed. So are we seeing or hearing any discussion in Washington as to what may be down the road to, not completely remedy that, at least gain on where we are?
Yeah, when you look at the Highway Trust Fund revenue, that was in place pretty much right around the Korean War time, so sometime in the 50s. And you're right on. The Highway Trust Fund, where we stand right now, is starving. And that's probably the best way to put it because, fortunately where we are, we have more efficient vehicles. And then, as you mentioned, the electric vehicles. But with that, because that revenue source was from, some of the gas tax revenue, the Highway Trust Fund doesn't have the funds to replenish or revenue to replenish it like it had in the past. I can say there are folks in Washington, D.C., and not only Washington, D.C., but around the country looking at some alternative revenue source, some innovative ways to fund the infrastructure. But that is a huge gap where we are right now. There's been a lot of good ideas out there, but with competing interests and some of the other things that are out there, really getting everybody going in the same direction on that's going to probably be a struggle. But yeah, definitely where we stand right now, the Highway Trust Fund does need to be replenished and projected to be in the future.
I'm going to mention the building, the city right here, behind the former Secretary of Transportation, James Codell. And when I worked with him, that would have been in '99, I did a spreadsheet of all the unscheduled needs lists just for Kentucky. Now, we could have caught up in 1 year if Congress decided to give the complete total funding to just Kentucky, leave the other 49 states out. That would have been what it took. It didn't happen, did it? A little bit of a snapshot of how big. So if that problem's that big here, it's that big other places. So that was $44 billion then just for Kentucky to catch up.
Yeah, that's right. And I think one of the things that you all saw, I think it was a year or so, probably a little longer than that, ASCE's report card, American Society of Civil Engineers report card, and the overall needs. I think they gave the infrastructure grade a D, and then talked about just to get things up into okay condition, the money that was needed, still wouldn't be the amount that you're talking about to move the stage forward. So, I think we all know, and Congress recognizes that, this administration definitely recognizes that, and then I would say Secretary Child, I can tell you, recognizes that. I know Jim Ray and the folks working behind the scenes as part of her team are working real hard to try to find some innovative financing mechanisms. And that's where the discussion, I think you mentioned that, I mentioned P3, that's where bringing some partners to the table to help out, because even if we can help out a state where they can utilize tolling or the private financing, then there's some of those dollars can go to some of the more rural states that don't have the tolling capabilities and others, such as some of the other states may have. So, yeah, I think, I definitely can say, yeah, in Washington, they are working hard to try to remedy that.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Very,
thank
very
you.
informative. Good deal. Item number 8, Kentucky Indiana Transportation Excellence Kite Awards. Larry, back up. Larry?
Yes, sir. This is part of our pleasant part of our job is to recognize the achievements that we have with an award. It's plastic. The other awards are paper, but we think it means a lot. This is something we came up with, staff came up with 2 years ago. This is the 3rd annual Kite Award, and it is supported by both committees. The working group, there's a nomination working group, and then the selection group actually makes the final selection from the short list of nominations. We had 7 projects nominated this year from a variety of locations. They were narrowed down to 3 finalists. The first finalist is the Roundabout project in Fairdale that we discussed earlier. This, again, is a project that's a joint effort between Louisville Metro and KYTC. They each shared funding sources for different phases of the project. There's a lot of coordination, a lot of community involvement, and we think it's a pretty nice project and a really good first step at a major roundabout in our community. The second finalist is this is a mouthful. It's actually 2 projects. The Spring and Silver Street Road Diet was one project, it's an HSIP project. The one-way to two-way conversion project is another. They work together. This is the first major look at a downtown street system in our community since the 50s. Historically, these small communities, well, downtown Louisville, an urban community prior to the 50s had two-way streets, generally. Very few one-way streets, unless they were narrow one lane for some reason. But typically a 2-lane or a 3-lane roadway was a two-way street. In the 50s and 60s, America fell in love with the automobile. And as a result, a lot of these, to get people through the community in as fast and efficient way as possible, was to make it a one-way street. So what New Albany did is they went back, they had 3 public meetings, they had 3 public meetings, 1 public hearing. Krishan, correct me if I'm wrong on these. You got a lot of community input, a lot of community buy-in, a lot of community support for this project. And what it does, it takes the downtown grid of State, Pearl, Bank, Elm, Spring, Market, and on the northeast end of it, Vincennes Road. This is the Spring Silver project, and that was a road diet that feeds into that downtown grid. They did a lot of homework on this. They did traffic counts during construction projects to see what the impact of throttling down these roads might be. It's several years in the making. This is a typical section of one of the intersections in that particular area, where you can see bike lanes were added. There are new head signals, and it has a two-way conversion. The last finalist is the Lavello Bike Share Project. We had a presentation month before last from this group. What this is a network of over 200 bicycles at about 30 locations in the downtown area, out to University of Louisville and out through Butchertown, where you can take one of these lovely bikes. They're hard to miss. And make a short trip. Say, for instance, you want to ride the bus. Well, you can get one of these, you can ride to the bus, or ride the bus, go to one of these, and then take your downtown trip. It is one of those things that provides that extra multimodal option that we keep talking about. So those are the 3 finalists. And the winner is the Walton Spring Center Street project. And I have certificates, first of all, for the other finalists. John and, I guess, Tom. Chris John, Ashley wants a photo up here with you with this award. Let you take this handy carrying case back with you.
One more. That was really dark. Thank you.
Oh.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mayor, we luncheon too, so.
Oh, good, good. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, item number 9, fiscal year 2018 through 21, Transportation Improvement Program. Nick, you're up.
Good morning, everybody. This is a routine item that we normally bring every month to you all. These are administrative modifications to the current fiscal year 18 to 2021 Transportation Improvement Program, which is basically the region's short-term 40-year budget. Administrative modifications are minor in nature. On the memo, you can see some of the reasons why changes were made. You'll see 2 different attachments, administrative modification 5 and administrative modification 6. Basically, all of these projects have been modified with the tip. We're presenting this for you guys for your information. No action is needed. I can answer any questions about any of the projects in here. One of the ones that probably stands out is the Heavy Haul Road Transportation Corridor. Many changes were made as NDOT, Clark County, and surrounding communities have come to an agreement on how that project will be financed and funded. It's going to be a multitude of sources with lots of contributions from the locals. So if you have any questions about any projects in these 2 lists, let me know now or after this meeting. Otherwise, that's all I have.
All right, good day. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much. Item number 10. Oh, it's good. Oh, no
One
problem.
more just mention, heads up to everybody, December 22nd is the due date for any PIFs to be submitted for the next amendment to the TIF. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 10. Any other business come before this board? Item number 11, motion to adjourn. Motion second? All in favor, aye. We are adjourned. Thanks for attending. And thanks for attending. And thanks for attending. And thanks for attending. And thanks